We're ready?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Call to order the October 21st meeting of the River Edge Mayor and Council. Can we all stand for a moment of silent reflection? I'd like to remember the mother of Art DeRosa, our code enforcer who passed away this week. Councilwoman Davis, lead us in the pledge salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Stephanie, would you do the roll call, please?
Councilwoman Steed.
Here.
Councilman Domingo is out with prior notice. Councilwoman Davis.
Present.
Councilman Gaudier.
Here.
Councilwoman Kaufman.
Here.
Councilman Papaleo.
Here.
Thank you. I have a motion to go into closed session, Resolution 19-339, for the purpose of Fire Department Procedure Report and River Edge Board of Ed contract negotiations, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're now in closed session. Mr. Fiorio. Agenda. Mr. Fiorio, would you like to take that?
Sure. Mayor and Council President, once a year we get an update from our insurance company. Many of you probably get the 9 billion emails that he sends to me as well, too. It sends to all of us. It seems you can't go a week without getting an email from him. But he certainly wanted to come in, make a presentation, kind of give you the state of the state for River Edge on how we're doing from a workman's comp perspective and perhaps an EPL as well. So without further ado, Ezio, come on up.
Thank you for that warm welcome. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Good evening.
Council President, members of the council, councilor, we just met outside. Councilwoman, Borough Clerk.
Hello.
Borough Clerk, who I know very well.
Thank you.
Sure will. As Ray just introduced, my name is Ezio Altamura, and I have my partner Matt Nagaro. We're from the Gem Otterstedt Insurance Agency. We're here to do our annual insurance review. There's quite a bit of information in this packet, so if you have any questions upon us leaving, you can always give us a call. Our business cards are in there, so I'm just going to briefly go through it. It's just something that we do for all our municipal and public entity clients, just to kind of bring you up to date with any changes, any initiatives, safety initiatives, risk management issues that we think the governing body should be aware of. So if you open the packet and you turn to the right side of the packet, first I want to thank you again for your appointment this year. Mayor Mignone appointed with the council approval, so thank you. We've been your risk managers since 2015 for the borough, representing the borough of River Edge in the Bergen County Municipal Joint Insurance Fund and the Municipal Excess Liability Insurance Fund. So page 1 is just basically an introduction and some of the things we do, working with your new administrator, Ray. Welcome, Ray, to the borough of River Edge. We've been speaking quite a bit. Page 2 is just a little bit of our background. It begins with the resumes of the principals of my firm. Tonight, Matt is with me. You've met Joe Gentili, my other partner, and we're part of a larger agency. Otterstedt has 7 offices. We insure over 30 public entities in the state of New Jersey, and we're one of the largest privately owned brokerage firms in the country. Our office is in Teaneck. That's just a partial list of some of the local municipalities that we insure and risk manage for. And that continues on to page 3. Matt and I are involved with the Bergen County Municipal Joint Insurance Fund Safety Management Committee. I sit on the MEL Coverage Committee statewide, so we write policies and amend policies. So we're very involved in South Bergen. We're on management operations, safety, matters on safety as well. We just had a meeting last week for management to decide on dividends for the Bergen 38 members. So we're very involved with the Joint Insurance Fund the past 20-plus years. Page 4 is the 2019 Plan of Risk Management filed with the State of New Jersey Department of Banking and Insurance for the Borough of River Edge. Page 5, the first section is just a synopsis of the coverages, followed by more details. So we write the worker compensation for work-related injuries, your liability, including your excess, which is commonly called umbrella liability, public officials' employment practices, crime, volunteer directors and officers for your nonprofit, your fire and EMS, environmental, cyber, and property equipment breakdown, and emergency service volunteer. And I'll briefly go through them as I go through the program. Page 6, the optional excess liability is what we commonly call umbrella coverage. So the Borough of River Edge on the bottom of page 6 has a total of $15 million excess of the $5 million primary limit. That's the maximum offered in the Bergen County Municipal Joint Insurance Fund. So you have the maximum limits that can be purchased and acquired through the Bergen County Municipal Joint Insurance Fund. If you go to page 7, number 4, the public officials employment practices liability, which is one policy. Because of your low claims experience, your very good claims experience in the Borough of River Edge, you have a very preferred deductible, which I have listed there, and co-insurance as well. So that's a most preferred status. And some limits can be brought down or brought up depending on premium cost, which I review periodically with your administrator. We have the optional excess public officials liability, so you have the first $2 million, and then you have another $8 million above that, so you have a total of $10 million for public officials' employment practices, which is again the maximum offered in the Bergen County Municipal Joint Insurance Fund. On the bottom are the volunteer directors and officers liability. We carry the highest offered, which is $2 million. That's for wrongful acts and breach of duty by your volunteer fire and EMS. Directors and officers liability. If you turn to page 8, we do carry cyber coverage, and that's throughout our Bergen Municipal JIF, and then it's covered overall by the Municipal Excess Liability, which is the umbrella arm of the Bergen JIF. Data breach, data recovery, ransomware, those are some of the perils that are covered with cyber. If you go to page 11, something very unique to Bergen County, the Bergen and the South Bergen JIF, which are differentiated between north and south of Route 4, 38 members in the Bergen, which you're part of, 23 members in the South Bergen. We have emergency service volunteer automobile physical damage. So if you're volunteer, fire, or EMS are responding to a call, they have an accident using their personal vehicle, we cover up to $2,500 towards making them financially whole with their deductible, their out-of-pocket costs, or if they have no physical damage to their vehicle, they will pay up to $2,500 towards the vehicle. So that's something that's very unique to Bergen and South Bergen, voted upon by your executive committee. Page 10 are just some of the additional coverage that we write outside of the Joint Insurance Fund. We have an accident policy for your recreation. I work with Carol Valdanza. Often I speak to her about when you have rides, amusement rides, and vendors coming in. We have your bond coverage for your statutory positions, which are Linda Smith, that's the second bullet point, underwritten by the Joint Insurance Fund. That's your library treasurer, Maureen Murphy, your tax collector, and Alan Negri, your treasurer, CFO. So if those positions change, please let me know. I can get you an application so the new position, person holding that position can file for that. We have an accident policy through Volunteer Firemen's Insurance Services for your volunteer fire and EMS while they're providing services. And we have coverage for your boards as well, if they, like an accident policy on an excess basis, medical coverage. That's at the bottom of page 10. On page 11, we have your summer recreation, summer program for an accident policy covered. We have your River Edge Police Reserve and Citizens Emergency Response on an accident policy. We cover quasi-entities coverage as listed there. Most recently, the River Edge Swim Club was approved 3 years ago. So quasis give you $5 million of coverage. It's very unique to the Joint Insurance Fund. They're basically entities that are nonprofit that provide a service to the Borough of River Edge. So therefore, you file an application, the governing body passes a resolution, and the executive committee votes on that. So that's a list of your quasi-entities for the $5 million. We do carry flood insurance on the bottom of page 11 for your DPW building, your firehouse at 55 Ackerson Street, your shade tree building, and your tool shed at the Public Works facility. And that's page 12. Page 13 is actually going to refer to the left side of your packet. So there's just a few things in there, and I like to give governing bodies a little 5-year synopsis of claims. If you go to the left side of your packet and you pull out the blue sheet, this is a 5-year snapshot of all lines of insurance except for public officials' employment practices, by department, by year. So you can see kind of where your claims come from. It starts with fund year 2014 and goes through 2018. We have quarterly safety meetings that Ray runs here and Alan previously run, which I attend, and I actually bring these statistics. Every quarter I update your safety committee with all your claims experience, where the claims are coming from. So this is for the governing body's purposes. This is a 5-year snapshot. If you look at the bottom of fund year 2017 and you compare it to the fund year past year 2018, you can see a reduction in frequency and severity in claims. So the amount paid and the amount of claims. And you maybe heard me say this before, but the reduction in frequency is very important, and that's very important in the risk management world. The less claims we have, large or small, the less severity we have in claims. So if we reduce frequency, we reduce severity. So those trends are very favorable. Overall, the Borough of River Edge, pardon me, is in excellent shape, and the loss ratio, the amount of claims paid versus the amount of premium payment or the assessment payment, is very good. So you're very profitable for the Bergen Municipal Joint Insurance Fund.
What is the street maintenance claims for?
Probably Public Works.
For what?
Could be slip and falls, could be a liability claim, pothole claim. And if you want specifics, I have the actual specifics in my office, Councilwoman. If you give me a call, I can look into that. Also on the left side, I think I put this in last year, the mail does have a free app if you have a smartphone. Those are instructions how to download the application. If you put it in your phone and you click council member, clerk, I have all the radio buttons. Click, you'll get free alerts from the MEL, the Municipal Excess Liability on Safety Initiative. Classes, you can actually register for classes through that. It is a free app offered on your smartphone, and those are the instructions on how to access that. And it's a great tool. As your risk manager, I have all the radio buttons. So I get the mayor, the council, the DPW superintendent, fire chief, police chief, I get it all. The website for the MEL is there, www.njmail.org. That's where all your safety information comes from. If you have the app, you'll be able to access that. And the last sheet on my letterhead is just, if you're not on my email list, if you're not getting my, how many, 45 million emails, I try to limit them, I really do. I send maybe 1 or 2 a week, but everything that comes across my desk gets read by me personally and gets sent out by me or my assistant, Matt. So I make sure that the governing body, as well as all the department heads, are up to date on safety and class initiatives. Going back to the right side of the packet, so that's basically what was outlined on page 13. Page 14, again, I'm not going to go through all of these, but like with Carolyn and Ray, I worked on fireworks display and amusement rides when you have, events in the Borough of River Edge. I make sure I look at certificates of insurance. I work with Stephanie. If you have outside vendors, construction going on, we make sure that all the insurance is in place according to your bid specifications. And that's really outlined on pages 14 and 15. On page 16, to conclude, for 2018, last year, the Borough of River Edge received a $14,842 dividend due to the profitability of the Bergen JIF. Their surplus is around $4 million. And the 2019 assessment increased less than 2% of your CAC over last year. So again, the Borough of River Edge is in excellent shape when it comes to premium assessment and coverages and your claims experience. I do want to thank Alan. I know he's no longer here. I've been working with Ray. Ray hit the ground running, and we were speaking, 7, 8 o'clock at night, 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't know. We speak a lot, so he's on the ball for the Borough of River Edge, as I am. I do want to thank, I know John Lynch, he passed away, but he did a great job, and now you have Jason taking care of Public Works. I'm working with all the department heads and with Stephanie and Judy as well in the front office. Does the governing body have any questions for me? Okay. I tried to cover this in 7, 8 minutes. I know you always have a heavy agenda. I pulled it online. I can see you have a lot of items. So I thank you.
Thank you.
I'm reachable, everybody needs me, you have my cell phone, you have my information. And I thank you once again.
Thank you, Ezio.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ezio. And thank you, Matt, for coming. We appreciate your comprehensive report always and your hard work on behalf of the borough. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Council President, Council, at the last meeting, there was some discussion regarding the potential acquisition of a variety of fire apparatuses, primarily vehicles associated with the fire department. We had some conversation about potentially having the fire chief to come in to give a better description of what those items are that the fire department is interested in acquiring. I see that the fire chief is here. This is an opportunity to ask any questions that you may have of him. I'm sure he'll relay some information to you as well. And then ultimately, council will need to give me direction of how you want to handle two of the items that were budgeted for. And again, you've heard me say this, many of the department heads have heard me say this, because you budget an item in your capital budget is not an authorization to purchase it. It takes an action by council to go ahead to make any purchase out of your capital budget. No different than your operating, where tonight we will go ahead and pass a bill list to go and expend out of your operating budget. That is the action that it takes to go ahead to spend out of your operating budget. So ultimately, you will need to give me direction on how you want to handle this acquisition.
Chief, if you'd like to come forward. Welcome.
Thank you.
Just state your name for the record.
George O'Connell from Lexington Drive, and I'm the fire chief. Behind me, with me is Frank Puglisi. He's the assistant fire chief.
Great.
He's also chairman of the committee, Company One's committee for the replacement of Squad 7. I guess the genesis of this was because we, in the capital budget, last year we asked for 2019, we requested $175,000 to replace Squad 7, which is across the street, which is a 1983 GMC truck. So it's, what, 38 years old. We bought it second-hand back in 1997 from the Milford Fire Department when they retired. And it was bought as a basically a special operations unit to provide a level of service that for different situations. It started off with the rope team. At the time, we were the confined space, and we still are the confined space in the rope team division of the Triborough Fire System, where Oradell is the boat operations, and the Milford has material. We are ropes and confined space. It since then has morphed into also a unit that's carrying in conjunction with OEM, with Ronnie Storacin OEM, all the generators and all the pumps that are needed for people for power failures when the storms come. And you know, people need. Ron has a complete list of people who need generators where there's going to be a continuous power outage, and it's always we've taken on the responsibility of being able to deliver these things, and we store them on we keep them on Squad 7, so that gives us that level of service for the people. And because of the way it's constructed, the way it's built, we use it. It mostly comes out for special things like the collapse at Crest Plaza, the trees into the house on Park Avenue, those kind of calls. But it also, when we get the flooding conditions in the south end of town, it's the only fire truck we have that we can take into the water. So just this year, what did we pull out? Two, three people out of the Steuben house? Out of the Steuben house, because what we do is we drive it right into the water, and we backed it up, and the people walked out of the building into the truck and didn't even get their feet wet. And the reason for that is because the air intakes are up high. It's up under the hood, Where the the $1 million trucks, they're all in, because of their type of construction, they're cab over. So the intakes for the diesel engines are in the fender wells. So if once the water gets up in the fender wells, the engine sucks that water, ingests that water, and then we're looking at $7,000 to $8,000 minimum repairs, at that point. So we've been using that. Yes, does it go out to every call? No, it does not go out to every call we go on. It's a specialty unit. It will go. It's basically designed for the storms that we have. The 100-year floods that in my 47 years here, I've been in 4 of them. Any type of specialty need. What we're looking to replace it with is a Ford F-550, and the Chief Puglisi will give you the details on that. 4-wheel drive unit, so we can use it in the wintertime to get a blizzard. We're not tying up the engines and the ladder truck, delivering a generator, delivering a pump to somebody's house, where we're putting this aside. This truck only sits 2 people in it. All right, we have tried numerous times to put seatbelts in it. We can't put seatbelts in it because of its age. No one will take the liability of installing aftermarket seatbelts. They have to be factory installed. That's basically it in a nutshell. Do you have anything you want to add, Chief?
No, he pretty much covered everything that the squad does. It has become somewhat, you refer to it as a bread box, it's become more of a toolbox. All right, especially with the need for OEM. Having to send a $700,000 fire truck, I have to wait for the DPW to plow the road so that I can get the fire truck down so I can drop the generator. Here I can send 4 guys in the squad. We can send them down. Right now we're sending 2 if we can. The rig is quite versatile. I know there's been some discussion in regards to the use of it. Its use has been somewhat limited. We want to expand it. Currently it has no Scott packs on it. The new one would have Scott packs and brackets on it. Currently this particular unit did, however, power the Borough Hall during the power outage as well, and it ran the police desk for 2 days. So I mean, the unit has a use, but we decided to step away from the larger generators, go to the smaller ones that can also do that, and this way we can leave it and move on. OEM has given us, right now we have 9 generators, we have 14 pumps. We need places to put it, we need where to carry it, we need places to where to deliver it. On top of that, we have all of the rope rescue. We are still the borough's confined space team for the DPW, so we have the air tank, the cart, the tripod. We also have the rescue tripod from the special operations team, from the rope team. We're also the backup confined space team for the Hackensack Water, for Suez Water. And all of that equipment is also on the squad, as well as the normals. This would be something that could now supplement the ambulance when they go out and we have to assist them with lifts. Instead of sending a fire truck and taking up the block, I can send the squad. I don't have to worry about plows. I have 4-wheel drive. I have a winch. I don't have to worry about being stuck. I don't have to worry about the ambulance being stuck. So all we did was take basically what we had, upgrade it slightly, and bring it in as a Ford as opposed to a custom-built fire truck that would be $500,000 to $700,000, and there's no need for that. So that's pretty much what we did. We did speak with the DPW and with the mechanics down there. They have Ford parts there, so we don't have to send this out for special service. If I drive this truck through 3 feet of water, all I have to do is change the oil on it. I don't have to send it out for $15,000 worth of differential changes, axle changes, seal changes, which I have to do with the larger trucks. So, and that the squad, I have a sheet here on the calls, all the calls that the squad has gone through since 2015, which is when we started Memphis. Can't go before that. All right, and these all show rescues and stuff we've done and the assistance that the squad has actually rolled on. But it would roll more once we get it upgraded and updated with the Scott packs and everything else that's required. Like, I can't put anybody in the back technically. I mean, we do during the floods because we have to get people out of the cars. But technically, I can't put anybody in that truck. I don't have seatbelts. So we can only ride 2 guys in the front seat. So that's kind of...
How many people can ride in the new one?
6.
6.
It'll be a crew cab.
It'll be a crew cab, and it'll have 4 Scott packs on it. so they can actually go to work.
And it's gonna have the same engines and transmissions as what the DPW is using now, so Woody only has to stock parts for Fords.
I know there was discussion in the past about replacing with a trailer, and I did catch that. And that was discussed when it was just the rope rescue, and that's going way back. But then over the years, it kind of morphed into different things. I mean, this particular unit pulled a tree off a house on Bogan Road, right? It assisted in the stabilization of the one on Park Avenue. I mean, so the unit does get utilized in special cases. We want to expand that use. That's really what it comes down to, and not put my $500,000 or $700,000 ladder truck down there on Plow Street. You know, because now I got to wait for the DPW. Now we got to take the DPW off of their route, and they have to come to, so I can drop a generator that you guys are doing the squad,
Or into water.
or into
The
heavy, I mean, 40th Avenue floods, Main Street floods, Hackensack Avenue floods. The squads pull people out of Route 4, Voorhees Avenue, Hackensack Avenue, Coles Court, Main Street, Kinderkamack Road down by Company 2. The squad rides right through that. We're replacing it with the same height, same thing. The air intakes will be up, except we upgraded it to four-wheel drive, so we don't have to worry about being stuck behind the Bob student house. Actually, you have to go in and get those people out because they stayed.
Okay, so thank you for coming in. I'm going to open it up to
Any
the...
questions?
Yeah, see if the council has any
Yes,
questions.
so, thank you both for coming. So I'd like to just, for the record, say a couple of things about the history of this particular capital item. In the winter of this year, we were in the process of the budget process, and we had many things on the capital budget that we had raised about concern about whether we were going to keep them on the budget. And at that particular meeting, I had said, well, we'll revisit this, that we'll come back to it. Soon after we began the process, our CFO, BA, Alan Magrian, had some family issues that required him to suddenly retire. And the mayor was also had some obligations elsewhere, out of state. So the budget process came to a sudden and unexpected halt. In the meantime, what we did was look for a CFO and a BA. We went through a hiring process, which eventually led to Mr. Fiorio. And by the time we were able to get back to the process, we were under a deadline, a state deadline for moving forward. So some things got missed. And I want to say that right up front. Had we had the normal process, I would have raised my concerns about this, because as you've already mentioned, Squad 7 was told to me my 4 or 5 years of being liaison to the fire department by 3 chiefs that we were going to spend $20,000 or $30,000 for a trailer, and that it was assured to me that many of the things that you guys have just described could be handled by the ladder truck or by the rescues, and that an expense of $175,000 was not necessary. Now, I understand that we haven't had a confined space rescue in several years.
That's correct.
Probably true.
And so this also leads me to wonder whether we need to spend $175,000 on a vehicle that is not serving that purpose. But you extended that purpose during this presentation into rescues of individuals and also delivering of generators or pumps. But it was my understanding that some of those generators couldn't have been delivered by other vehicles, including police vehicles, that they have been put in some of the SUVs. Maybe that's not true.
Well,
And I'd ask you to speak to that.
in my meetings with Ron Storase, his concern was taking a police officer, and in your experience as the fire liaison, you went through a couple storms with it.
Yes?
And you know that it's organized chaos.
Yes.
And there are vehicles running all over the place. Most of the time, the fire department can produce 25, 30 people for a storm like this. The police department has 3 guys on the road, 4 guys if they have the whole shift in, which, as we all know, sometimes doesn't have the whole shift.
Yes, I believe we're putting out 7 per call at this point. Is
I'm
that?
not talking about the fire department, I'm talking about the police department, right?
Oh, police department, yes.
So the idea being, they really didn't want to take the police officer off the road chasing the numerous calls that they have to do with the wires down and alarms and aid calls and in the meetings with, at the time was Lieutenant Napastack, myself, OEM Director Starace. They said, well, the fire department, we have the capabilities of helping out with that. So he supplies us with a list. Right now we have 5 names that come up as soon as there's no power, when it comes up that we start to check out to make sure that they don't need it. Constantly, I constantly get updates from Arlene, the town nurse, of who's good, who passed, who didn't, who's still good, or who's coming on. But the basic idea was have the fire department do it because we have the most manpower. The DPW is always busy clearing trees, plowing snow, and doing what they have to do. The fire department, we sit there and wait for a call. So the idea is that. Your question, are we with turning out 7 guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Did you see
We
that?
are right now. Our average call turnout is 7 members. But that's again 24/7 during the day. Yeah, we're in a tough situation during the day because of everybody working. We it's not uncommon for us to get 3 guys out of company 1, 3 guys out of company 2, and during the day. That's why when I took over as chief, I changed the procedures around. I'm sure they told you about that. I changed procedures and I made it the daytime work response, the work week response, where we're changing the procedures.
And I think that's worked well for you.
It's worked very well.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well, kudos for that.
But in the evenings, just last night we were out we had 4 runs yesterday, and we averaged 12. I think it was a little over 12 guys. We were out last night for what, an hour and 45 minutes.
But when you bring a storm into play, where the guys aren't going to work,
the guys aren't going
because
to
they're
work.
staying home, they're here.
Yeah.
Now we're putting 25 guys.
And I totally get that, and I totally agree with that. And just for the record, the last purchase you made, I fought very hard for you guys. And I absolutely want to spend every penny that we need to spend. I'm just not convinced that we need to spend $175,000 for a piece of equipment that really isn't being used that much. And if I understand it, and you can correct me on this, the generators can also, and I might be wrong on this, can be put on other equipment that we currently have. We have 1 ladder truck. We have 2 engines, right?
3 engines.
3 engines, I'm sorry,
And a rescue.
and a rescue. And plus we have 3 chief vehicles, which I'm not quite sure if there's enough room for the current generators
There's not.
in the back.
No,
I didn't think that was true. I just wanted to check on that.
You're talking generators that are.
But
That would mean that we're going to take a first-line fire piece of apparatus, move aside, tie it up, putting a generator on an unplowed street, or a street that has collapsed trees, and and tying up a full crew. Where what we've been doing is setting a SWAT.
That's true, but I remember,
So
Sandy,
that is-
I was liaison, and we had roaming engines out, as well as engines waiting at the fire, so we,
Roaming.
We don't have roaming.
We don't have roaming.
I thought we sent them out to help
Oh, sure.
with
They get
ambulance
sent.
squads pulling people out of the house.
Well, that's
That was the goal.
Well,
that's
yeah,
the
I
goal.
misspoke, I apologize.
I mean, we get a call for service, we dispatch what we can. Now, when it's a storm situation, right now, call comes in for a structure call or an activated fire alarm. We're gonna send 3 engines, the 3 engines to rescue and the ladder truck. If we get a storm, well, then we're only gonna send. We're getting 1. We might just send 1 and 1 because we know we're going to be getting another one in about another 3-4 minutes and another 3-4 minutes. So we try to stage our apparatus and send it to. We prioritize the calls when you're doing when you're doing 70, you know, it's
I
not
totally
common for
understand your
75
concern.
calls.
And I don't-
100% understand your concern.
Sure.
It's just, I've got a piece of equipment here that is 40 years old. If we want to say we're going to start consolidating equipment, and that's the direction that we're going to be heading to, I understand that. And I don't disagree with the concept of consolidation as long as it's done without affecting the level of service that the fire department performs.
And I agree with you.
I mean, If I
agree
take your $500,000 rescue truck and I stuff water into that intake because I had to pull 2 people out of Hackensack Avenue, I just did $20,000 worth of damage.
That's true, but and I was liaison for 5 years, every time we had emergency calls, other than Sandy, which kindly shut everybody down, we got Hackensack to respond.
No, sir.
Well, for instance, the structural fire that happened on the north end of town,
Structure fires.
I think we had 5 different towns respond.
But that's a structure fire in a regular scenario. As soon as you put a storm in, you're isolated.
You put a storm in,
You're standing alone.
you know,
All right.
Hackensack has the same problems we have.
Yeah.
New Milford has the same problems we have. Oradell's doing.
During Hurricane Floyd, none of those towns could get to us. We were literally on our own.
You know,
That's why we started to duplicate equipment. That's why all of the fire trucks carry chainsaws. So these guys can literally cut their way out and go back to work.
Yeah.
Because we are isolated. And once Hackensack floods, and they flood it when it rains too hard, but once they flood during just in the middle of a nor'easter,
Yes.
you're not going to get any help from them, and Oradell's not going to give you any help, and Milford's going to be underwater. How is this?
they can't help us out here.
Can
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit more about the enhancements you plan to make if we were to move forward with this vehicle
What
to
we did,
improve the
vehicle
emergency
that we currently
service?
have, like I said, back in 1983 when this was built, you didn't have seatbelts in the back to ride in the back. So that was a 6-man vehicle, and they could put 4 guys in the back that weren't belted in. It was within the law, it was okay. That's no longer the case, so we had to go to a crew cab. All right, so the vehicle doesn't have stop packs or the capability of mounting stop pack brackets on it, so I can't have guys basically scout up inside the vehicle, or can I even have enough room to store. So we're introducing scout packs. All right, the winches and stuff that are on this truck are being duplicated, but that'll go over time. The 4-wheel drive we went to, because this vehicle has gotten itself into mud, it manages to get itself out, so we went to the 4-wheel drive, especially with the unplowed streets. You know, because now we have to pull a DPW truck off the road to go drop a generator. So instead we figured we're doing an F-550, get the 4-wheel drives, keep the upgrades. All right, we'll be able to carry all of the equipment that we currently store. So the stuff that we have to go back and forth to will now be on this truck. Right now, it's stored in the firehouse, and then come storm time, it's laid out on the apparatus floor. You know, here, it's all going to come out, going to be put on this piece of apparatus, it's going to be ready to go anywhere whenever it has to. On top of that, like I said, we still maintain the confined space unit, we still maintain the rope rescue equipment. All of that will still be on this unit, as well as these generators and OEMs and the pumps. Right now, we get a general alarm for a pump out of the basement, and now you've got 2 huge pieces of fire apparatus on a street that's half flooded for a basement, when I could send the squad and 2 guys. I mean, we've got limited manpower as it is. I gotta be able to move it around without tying up a first-line piece of apparatus, from a tactically speaking. You know, again, financially, fiscally, it's not correct, I understand that, but this is, you know, we're just trying to maintain the level of service that we currently have, and in turn, get even a little bit better, you know?
I have a question on, you talked about being able to go through water and the other trucks can't do that. Would you be sending that out? I mean, we flood down the south end of town.
That's exactly,
That to me is a no-brainer. I mean, to have something that is able to
the
go
other
in
day,
there.
back
I mean,
I
we're
can tell you.
talking all the
hold on.
time.
The water evacuation was done back in, a year ago, in October, when we took the 4 people out of the von Steuben house.
Right, I
All
remember
right,
that, yeah.
and, you know, we were able to, while the boat and everything was still being hooked up and the rescue could come as close
You
as
were
we
in
could, the squad could drive right through, right up to the door.
Yeah.
You know, because all the intakes are raised, the air is raised, so we can go right up,
How many inches is that?
up off almost.
The intakes, on the vehicles that you
well,
say can't go in.
What is it, 24? Out?
With the height.
How the air intake on The ladder truck might be 24 inches.
24 inches?
And what about the rescue?
They're about the same. They're about the same. I'm gonna say between 18 and 25. We didn't measure it, but it's somewhere in that wheelway.
And we do still have the boat, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We have 2 boats, but you can't, you're not gonna put a boat in what would be considered a deep puddle rescue. But the police put up the barricades, and the people drive through them.
Wouldn't 2 feet
and
be?
They get stuck.
And they get stuck,
So-
and now they're sitting on the roof of their car. I can't leave them there.
Do Councilman Gautier, Councilwoman Kaufman have any questions for the chiefs?
I think you answered one question.
I think that this was very helpful, and as to Tom's point, perhaps a delayed discussion of what we should have had. So my feeling would be that we've got a lot of good information here, and we should evaluate as a council at another time how we want to move forward, or was somebody looking to take some action tonight on the council?
I wasn't.
Okay. Are you, Mary, you can,
Well, if
disagree.
nobody else is ready to take action, I don't know if I should be since I'm the liaison.
No, Mary, you absolutely.
I mean, I think that they made good points here tonight as to we're replacing a 40-year-old vehicle and it's going to be used much more. And the more we see the flooding in this town, down the south end, there's always pictures on Facebook of somebody sitting on their car and all this, because they go right through the barricades and everything else.
So what does the council like to do?
Unless I
I
should
don't-
wait until Dario's around, because I know he's for it.
Maybe we do need to wait for Councilman.
Yeah, we are missing one of our...
It might be better for you if
If it came down to a priority of allocating the resources this year for that truck and putting it towards the other truck that you're looking to replace, I mean, a priority if you could get one, which would it be this year?
This year?
Yeah.
Well, the other one, I believe the estimate for that truck is a little over $700,000.
Okay. So let me rephrase the question. Which would you rather have quicker? Would you rather-
I would, as a chief, I would want the squad quicker, because that's the oldest truck. It's gonna, and truthfully, with weather conditions being what they are and potentials of storms, it's gonna get used. Well, it'll be used more than most ladders. I mean, the rescue truck or this rescue bumper, that would respond to structure calls. But again, that truck was designed, its original design, I mean, we talk about how things morph. That was originally designed for automobile accidents. Right? So I mean, the train wreck that we had, 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, and we're talking about your levels of service and how something to use. Councilman Capoeira mentioned we haven't done a confined rescue in 4 or 5 years. Until that call, it was 6.5 years since we used the Joe's of Life in River Edge, and we used it on Elman Adams back in 2012, 14.
It's been 6 years since we used it.
I mean,
But you still have to be prepared for the level of service. And again,
Just only because I don't have the numbers off the top of my head and I wasn't here. How much have you allocated, how much has the borough allocated towards the...
The borough allocated $175,000 towards Squad 7, $200,000 towards...
And is that the first year of the 200,000 towards?
That's the first year. Well, last year, yes, that's the first year for it, yes.
So I was under the impression that last year money was allocated.
Last year, $175,000 was allocated for a rescue truck. Then Company 2 changed their minds, and they decided to, at that point, we were only going to replace the rescue truck. Right? Then after going to shows and doing different, doing research, we found that we could combine because in 4 years from now, you have to replace engine 4. So we say, well, if we're going to, if they delayed it a year, they're going to delay it another year, well, let's just combine it and buy one piece of equipment instead of buying 2 pieces of equipment instead of buying 3.
So you have 175 from last year.
No, yeah, well, I don't think that money's there anymore. I was told that money's not there anymore.
Okay.
They didn't spend it, but.
We didn't spend it.
Just let's get that out there.
When you get the anymore.
When I said to her, I said, is this line still good? She said, no, it's not good. The money's not there. So,
Because it was a rescue truck and not a rescue pumper, the money was probably
the money,
reallocated.
probably, yeah, because they changed the verbiage on it, they changed the title.
You're basically starting from scratch, at least that's the understanding that I have, but I don't.
All right, so then we will take it up.
Yep, we'll talk about it.
But this was very helpful. Thank you very
Okay.
much for your time, your explanations.
All right, thank you for being so forthright.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the mayor and council closed session of October 7th, 2019?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
One abstention.
I have a motion to approve the minutes of the mayor and council work session of October 7th. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any extensions of opposition? Motion to approve the minutes of the mayor and council regular meeting of October 7th.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? May I have a motion to open to the public on any item on this agenda? You will have an opportunity to speak on any item you wish to at the conclusion of the meeting. Motion to open to the public on an item on the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're now open to the public on agenda items. All you need to do is come forward, state your name and address. Seeing no one, can I have a motion to close to the public?
Second.
All in favor?
Did you want to speak?
On the agenda item?
Oh, well, you can speak later.
We'll open up again at the end. Appointments and personnel changes. I have a motion to approve the salary increase of Brenton Preisendorf, police officer, from an annual salary of $22,850 to patrol officer 14th grade salary of $81,255 effective November 3rd, 2019.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? A motion to approve the resignation of Andrew Slane from the River Edge Volunteer Fire Department, Company 1, effective October 8th, 2019.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There are monthly reports on record in the clerk's office from the Land Use Board, the Board of Health, Tax Collector, Chief Financial Officer, Fire Prevention, and Historic Commission. Any member of the public may request a copy from the clerk's office. We have resolutions on by consent. Would anybody like to call any resolution out for discussion or amend any of the consent agenda items?
Council President, I would like to add 19-356 and 19-357.
Thank you. I just have a question about 19-343, which is the going out to bid for the flashing beacon district. It's not about the bid per se, it's about do residents within a certain vicinity need to be noticed that these are going up? Because they are a flasher?
I don't know, I will look into
Okay.
it.
That's just a question about procedurally, not about the bid, going out to bid.
So needed, if they are, we will go ahead and notice.
Fantastic. Okay. So can I have a motion to approve resolutions 19-340 through
357.
357,
Excluding 355.
excluding 355, which is payment of the bills, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any discussion further? Thank you. Would Councilwoman Kaufman move 19-355, payment of the bills, please?
Whereas vouchers for the payment of goods and services rendered to the Borough of River Edge have been received, and whereas each bill has been checked by the receiving department, approved by the Chief Financial Officer and Borough Clerk, and reviewed by the 3 members of the Finance Committee, now therefore be it resolved that bills as listed now be confirmed for payment from the appropriate funds as follows. Current account, $1,177,719,000.76. Capital account, $25,574. Grants fund account, $1,696. Animal control account, $376. Trust other account, $9.41. Open space account, $147.93. Payroll account, $79,232.16. Developers escrow account, $3,487.50. Recreation account, $106.31. Be it further resolved that claims read and approved by the governing body at a council meeting will be dated the day after the reading of those claims and will appear on the following bill list at the next public meeting of the mayor and council, at which time claims will be paid. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. On to our borough administrator topics.
Yes, ma'am. I had two topics on the agenda with successful passage of the best practices. I'm assuming that you had no questions associated with that. So I'll move on to the item which is listed on the docket as parking permits for Grove Street residents. This our councilman here was actually going to go over the explanation of it, but I'll try to be a pinch hitter for him and fill in. A while back, you all received a email from a resident that had concerns regarding Grove Street, that she doesn't have the ability to, with the commercial businesses that are there, the ability to park on the street. And Officer Diamond had included a report and a recommendation for you, which I included into your packet, that basically says that the police department and the public safety committee have no objections of amending the ordinance to allow this resident to purchase 2 of the parking permits that are allocated out of the 13. It's really open for discussion on council, and if this is the direction that you want me to do or you want to take, I will have an ordinance ready for you to introduce at the next council meeting.
So I'm fine with amending the ordinance. I've spoken to the resident. I visited them. I don't believe it stops with that one home. I believe there's a home across the street who's similarly having difficulties parking their cars on Grove Street. So if we were to do this, I would want to make sure that we're giving ample opportunity to the neighbor across the street. And I don't know if that impacts the police department's recommendation.
I can ask.
Okay, because there is a home directly across the street that they mentioned that they're having a similar problem.
And they should have the opportunity.
Of course. So I just don't know how that impacts their whole analysis.
Let me look into it, and if it's something that the police department feels is a workable solution, then I'll have the ordinance prepared for you for next council meeting for introduction.
Okay.
Does this open a door?
I'm not sure how to answer that.
Could
I'm
people
sure any resident,
between Tincamac and Bogart ask for the same thing?
there is nothing preventing them or any resident from requesting. Ultimately, it becomes your decision of whether you want to grant that request and whether you want to pass or amend the ordinance respectively.
Because, and the reason I bring this up is because that issue came up when I was early on the council, which is 7-8 years ago. And the chief, if I'm not mistaken, came forward and said that we couldn't create private parking on public streets, and that he would not issue parking permits.
But these are in the business lot. They're buying the permits inside the business lot, not for purchase on the street.
Which is why I asked the question, did it open the door? It doesn't open the door then.
No.
I just want to put that on the record. We are not saying that we are giving permits for public streets. We are giving permits for our parking lot.
Correct.
That's my understanding.
That's the way I read it.
That's mine too, but I wanted for the record, I wanted to ask our BA for the record, is that his understanding?
I will further research and get back to you on that.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Okay. Would you mind letting the resident know where we stand?
Absolutely.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, we have a motion to open to the public on any item that they wish to be heard
So
on.
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any member of the public can come forward or stand up. Well, come forward. Oh, Yeah, go ahead, and just state your name and address for the record, please.
Christina Marion, 183 Kensington Road.
Just lift the microphone so
Sure.
fantastic. And say it again,
Is
I
this
didn't hear you.
better? Christina Marion, 183 Kensington Road. Thank you, distinguished members of the council, for your time tonight. I have prepared some comments and out of respect for your time in order to stay organized. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to read for a bit and then, as you wish. So I'm here to speak with you about the air raid siren that's currently at Kensington and Elm. I sent an email, and I've actually been pen pals with Ms. Davis as well as Chief O'Connell, who was here a little earlier, and appreciate the responsiveness. Thank you very much. So for tonight, I'd like to approach this issue with a fresh perspective, as if nothing were in place at the moment, as if there were no sirens at all in River Edge, just so we can have a fresh start. We have approximately, if I'm reading the website correctly, 60 volunteer firefighters in River Edge who need to be informed when there's a fire. And we have about 12,000 residents who rely on those firefighters, but who have not volunteered to be alerted each time there is a fire. So the question is, what is the most effective way to reach these 60 VIPs, the firefighters? I think this is a common goal for everyone. It serves everyone in town. Ideally, we would review best practices from other volunteer fire departments, collecting facts and data in order to make the best decision. You might even commission a few studies to understand the pluses and minuses of the choices. The residents have complained about the use of these air raid sirens before, but to date there have been no analyses, facts, or studies used to determine the best course of action. The last time this issue was discussed in the town council, there was only one piece of analysis, a 2011 report done by the county health department measuring sound produced by the siren. No other facts or reports were presented. Now, however, we have the benefit of publicly available studies on public health effects of this kind of noise on people. We have studies from the Center for Disease Control, the National Institutes of Health, the Environmental Protection Agency, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the World Health Organization. And the best part is that they're already paid for, and we can use their learning with no additional taxpayer dollars. So I've emailed these reports to Ms. Davis. I wasn't sure if I had the correct email addresses for the entire council. I've emailed all of those reports in preparation for today's meeting. And I believe that you'll conclude that leaving the siren operational in a residential area is a public health issue with consequences for adults and children alike. So my goal today, as I mentioned in my email to you earlier, and again, I did not have the exact email addresses, so I used the nomenclature from Ms. Davis's address, is to revisit the issue of removing or relocating the siren in the residential area, Kensington Road and Elm Avenue. Right now in River Edge, we're using very cutting-edge 1950s technology in 2019. We are using an air raid siren for a purpose it was never designed for. And in Whippany, they literally have this in their museum. It is an artifact from the past in their museum. Same siren. The placement of the remaining 3 sirens seems to be arbitrary. I believe in past meetings it was discussed that we had gone from 6 sirens to 3 sirens, but there's really no rhyme or reason to where those remaining 3 sirens are. 2 of the sirens are on Kinderknack Road, which obviously is not, which is a much busier road, and is not an exclusively residential area. Additionally, where the remaining siren in Kensington is in a valley. And based on preliminary discussion with the sound engineer, that not only is the worst place to have it to carry for long distances, it also concentrates the sound for the residents of that area. I don't believe there's been any action or analysis taken to date by the fire department to find alternatives to this situation, despite requests by the community. But now, as I mentioned, there's publicly available expert evidence to prove that loud noise is detrimental to public health. We do know from previous meetings and from Mr. Sarlo that this is not a legal requirement. It is absolutely a choice by the town to retain this method of communication. Thereby, this is essentially a choice. It's completely reversible, and it's within your power, essentially, to improve the quality of life and the quality of public health in town. The Costs to the residents include loss of their outdoor and indoor space without notice, potential hearing damage, and also cognitive, psychological, academic, and stress-related somatic effects. I'm wrapping up, don't worry. The county test at that Kensington Road that was conducted showed that over 2 minutes of the siren sounding, there was only 10 seconds below the level that is recommended for optimal acoustic health, below the levels by the US EPA and the World Health Organization. And just so this is in what I was emailing to you, there are charts, et cetera, but the recommendation is really that noise does not exceed 70 decibels on average over 24 hours. And I know that all of us are not sound experts, so I'll give you a point of reference. The smoke alarm in your house goes off at between 75 and 85 decibels. The siren goes off at levels excess of that for 2 minutes straight. So it's also, you kind of know when your smoke alarm might go off because you're probably cooking. It doesn't come as an absolute surprise to you. The residents in this area have absolutely no warning, and they are subjected to this incredibly high level of noise, on average 6 times a week. That is from information that was shared by Fire Chief O'Connell earlier, let's see, it was probably last month. Year to date, the siren has gone off, I think at that point it was something like 219 times, but when we did the math together, it becomes 6 times a week. So imagine having your smoke detector go off 6 times a week with no notice for 2 minutes. And I think you'll have a sense of what is going on. Additionally, when you're looking at the reports, the peak is 113 decibels. Decibels are not measured on a linear scale, it's a logarithmic scale. So when 113 decibels, that means comparing it to 75 decibels, just to do the math quickly, that's 10,000 times more intense than 75 decibels and 16 times as loud as your smoke detector. So I'm here really to ask for you to reconsider these questions, like what really is the purpose of this siren? Is it to notify firefighters, in which case, how do we notify these 60, VIPs? What a lovely interlude when we're talking about sound. And what alternatives are available? Because there are lots of volunteer fire departments all over the country that are not using what are known as air raid sirens or civil defense sirens to notify 60 people out of 12,000. Is it to notify the public at large, which was something that our fire professionals had said in the past. Again, I think people know when they hear the fire trucks that there's a fire. They don't need to be notified that there's some kind of emergent situation. What about having it available in case of emergency? That seems valid, but the governor only declared a state of emergency in New Jersey 4 times year to date. So how is it that River Edge has 250 emergencies that require an air raid siren when the entire state only has 4? So I really do appreciate your time. I am trying to keep my sharing with you short. Again, I think that in the past it was a dearth of information that caused that caused the actions that were done in the past. There is plenty of information to go through. I think none of us are experts on sound or public health, which is why we have to rely on expert opinion, which I believe you will have available to you when these materials are reviewed. Do you have any questions for me?
I have one. I'm Mike Rosenberg. I'm pinch hitting.
Yes, yes, I saw you in the lobby.
Tonight. Have you spoken to the fire chief about your concerns personally?
Yeah, we emailed back and forth.
And what's his opinion? I'm just curious.
Well, his opinion, I did not ask him, could we get rid of the siren? Mm-hmm. In the past, I know that the fire chiefs felt that it was very important to be able to reach the firefighters reliably. And of course, we all want the firefighters to be reached reliably. That's not at issue here. The issue is how should they be reached reliably so that they can do the job that they've very generously volunteered to do. I refuse to believe that River Edge is the only town that has ever had to address this issue. We're not in the sticks, we are. a very, we've been written up in the New York Times, for goodness sake. So,
This is not the only town that has those. I know that it's been an issue in other towns as well.
yeah, I don't know, Whippany, for example, not to beat a dead horse, but they use the same method to alert their fire departments. And in their assessment, I think about 20 years ago, they decided that the technology was already at a point where it wasn't necessary anymore. I have a bit of a technology background, so with 5G coming, there's certainly the possibility that where there were areas in town that did not have adequate coverage, 5G will require quite a few repeaters. I don't want to get into this. Trust me, it's going to be faster, but there are going to need to be more boxes everywhere. And if the decision, or if it's in the interest of the public, that this air raid siren remains, what is the rationale for it being in this purely residential area? Or why not move it somewhere? Like, the residents at this area have dealt with it for 50 years, and the fact that there hasn't been more turnover indicates how much they want to be in River Edge. Let another part of River Edge shoulder the burden if this is the only way to alert the firefighters. Seems fair. So that's kind of what I wanted to get your input on, and I hope I've been able to share information that was not otherwise available to you.
We received this about 6 o'clock tonight, so
Yes.
we have to review it. But,
5:20, I received it.
No, I wasn't expecting you to have had a chance to review it, but since I was going to be referencing it tonight, I wanted you to have it available. And frankly, it's a lot to go through, so I wouldn't have expected you necessarily to go through it in advance anyway.
And speaking for myself, we appreciate your comments and your well-thought discussion with us tonight. I for one, would like to see us perhaps discuss this at a work session in the future. I'd really like to understand how similar municipalities of size and with volunteer service have handled the removal of these, because I think Whippany's, you've referred to Whippany, but Whippany's a very different community with their fire service and what have you than we are. So I would like to see similar sized volunteer service, that have volunteer service organization fire, and how they've addressed it. So can we,
even the fact
we want to...
There were 3 sirens that were put out of...
council the last time this came up, and the council at that point felt that the fire department's recommendation for public safety was the preeminent opinion that we needed to follow. So I would think that the fire department would need to weigh in about this before we started talking about it, so that we knew, so we had a criteria and parameters in which to discuss.
That's why I asked if she's spoken with the...
Yeah, then I was
He knew I was
going
going to
to
be
ask
here
if
tonight.
you're going to ask the fire department to provide a review of this, I'd like to see them look at municipalities similar to us that have been successful in removing these sirens as part of their analysis.
Look into Closter, I know for a fact because I live there.
There you go.
Closter's one that you want to check into.
Okay.
They
So-
did change the time.
Yes, they
It used to
do
be
it overnight.
24, they
now
only
it's
do it
just-
until 11 p.m. unless.
Yes, and there are
unless
quite a
it's
few
life
unlesses.
Well, the
threatening.
unless is if it's, would be.
If the
somebody-
911 operator...
A house fire where they.
I believe it's if there's a potential life-threatening,
Exactly.
right,
Exactly.
right. So, and I would say, I'm sure that the fire department, has there been any negative consequence as a result of already putting 3 of the sirens offline when they did? What was that?
It was about
Councilman.
7 years ago, and one of the things that was reviewed, just as, not to make an argument, simply to share information,
Please.
was that the one you're talking about, the fire siren, is the most south of the
Yes.
sirens.
Yes.
In addition, as an accommodation, because we absolutely understand how loud they can get, the fire department went through, actually, I believe, and please don't hold me to this, 4 different ramping up and ramping down. The siren, the decibels, is not controlled by how much energy, but how long you ramp it up or turn it on. And so the fire department came to the conclusion that it doesn't, by the way, go to its full decibel level.
Oh, no, I know it's not at its full potential.
I think it goes to 80% and then drops down I think it's a 10 to 20-second rise, and then it drops back down and then comes back up. And the fire department sent out firefighters to the southernmost parts of town as well as the westernmost part of town and ran these different scenarios and then determined from them what would be the least amount of ramping up and what would be the least amount of cycles. So to be able to be heard everywhere in town. And the firefighters did look into different technology solutions because we'd have to have a solution if we decommission them.
Or you could just move the siren. Yep.
Well, the problem with that is the residents who bought homes in the area of the siren, at the time, the siren existed. So to move the siren would now be placing residents who bought homes that were not in the area of sirens. And that could be a concern. Now again, I'm not trying to make arguments, I'm simply what was reviewed. I think we should review it again. I think your concerns are legitimate, but because I had gone through it, that's why I know that we need the fire department to weigh in, and we need to have a solution other than move the siren, because I don't think we could do that without entering into a lot of liability and lawsuits.
Well, I think that there are, I mean, certainly the young family that moved in next door to me was not unaware of the siren. So there are people who have moved into the neighborhood. It's not a selling feature to a neighborhood. And the fact that it's not kind of is pretty clearly why the residents here, I think, have done their part. The residents in that area. If you don't want it in your backyard, why would they want it in their backyard? And so their children have to run inside. It's incredibly unpleasant, and it's unfair that one group of residents, that only one group of residents really has to shoulder the burden for the entire town. And I appreciate that the firefighters did do their tests, but again, that comes back to subjective and not fact-based analysis. And so weather conditions change, how sound travels. There are multiple
you're right about
multiple variables. I am not an expert, and I have learned a lot through this process.
Sounds like you've done a lot of research.
Well, you know, I don't want to waste your time. And so before coming here and requesting this, I really wanted to present you with as objective and as clear a picture as possible, because I really respect the work that you're doing, and you're looking out for the town. And I'm an optimist. I know that this has been brought up to prior councils, but I think that information is king, and I think that it's the only way to make a fair decision.
No, you're so right.
Do you realize that I live on Kensington?
No!
That's a siren.
Just thought I'd share that.
Oh my goodness! I shouldn't say where, but that's
No, I'm half block down from it.
It's
Just so you know.
Yeah, I mean, if I wanted to end on a positive note, I guess I would say it. There may be hearing loss, but it builds character. So.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming.
Any other members of the
Thank
public?
you.
Lou, I know you wanted to say something.
Hello, everyone. Lou Grasso, 172 Lozier Terrace.
Hi.
I'm the owner, managing member of the LLC that owns 840-846 Kinderkamek Road, the River Edge. Back in approximately 2000, this is in reference to the discussion that was going on earlier about the Grove Street parking for residents. Back in approximately 2014, the parking for businesses on Kinderkamek Road between Lincoln and Washington was almost non-existent. You could drive by that section any time of day, and there were cars parked on the east side of Kinderkamek Road between Lincoln and Washington. Always there. If any business wanted to have a customer park in Kinderkamek, it just was impossible. Back then, in approximately 2014, I might be off by a year or so, there was a business parking lot formed with the previous mayor, Muscaritolo, which was an empty piece of borough property that was not serving any purpose. and there was this business parking lot was formed, and after it was formed, the process that is currently in place where employees of businesses and business owners could purchase a permit either quarterly or annually, and they'd be permitted to park back there during business hours. After that happened, the parking situation on Kennecott Road greatly improved. It was a massive improvement to all of those business owners, where if you can drive by now during the day, and occasionally you will actually see empty spaces in front of, on the east side of Kennecott between Lincoln and Washington, where prior to that, there were no spaces ever. I mean, there was a hair salon that had a hair coloring salon and a jewelry manufacturing plant, and they each had many employees, and all the employees would park there the entire day. It just didn't work. The police were called. They would come to issue tickets. They would mark the tires. Some of the employees, you would see them go out there. What they do is police would put a chalk mark between the tire and mark the tire to the street. Employees would come out, move the car back 3 inches so the chalk lines didn't line up, and game the system. And the result was there was no parking for anyone. I think allowing residents to park in this area is setting a dangerous precedent, because now you're allowing residents to park in a business parking lot, and it's going to open the doors to other residents coming and asking to also park in that business parking lot. Really, giving the business, I think the business district there should have all the help it can, since the parking compared to other municipalities, many municipalities have municipal parking lots. You look in Teaneck, you look in Westwood, there's lots of municipal lots. River Edge has no municipal lots at that end. So the only parking area that's in existence for these employees of businesses and business owners is this lot in the north end of town. And if we're going to start giving that to residents and opening the door with 2 now, maybe more later, the occupancy on that lot, from what I understand, changes. Many times you can go there various years and there's no permits available at all. They've all been taken. Other times you can go and there might be 4 or 5. It's not, it's a fluid situation. So to say, and maybe at this time there's 2 empty spots, why don't we give those to residents? The residents have the ability to park in front of their house. They can park on Park Avenue. There's other options. This is the livelihood of the small businesses between Lincoln and Washington. I really don't think it's a good idea. In the past, there's a paper street that goes between Grove and Lincoln, and there was talk of taking that street and making additional spaces there, which never happened. It never happened. But now to go backwards and say we're not going to make those additional spaces that we had talked about on the paper street between Lincoln and Grove, and the existing spaces now, we're going to take some of them away for businesses, I think is preposterous. And the only other thing I would say on it, when this happened back in 2014, the way the area is, this is a lot that's borough-owned, it's not a public street, and for people to be able to get to that parking area, I own a strip of land, and I provided the borough an easement, which I had no qualms about, and I was compensated $1 for, to know that this would be a business parking area. And if you look at the survey done by Rob Costa, it shows business parking area. And to take this and open the door to residents when there's plenty of other areas they can park there, I think is horrendous for the businesses that are on that strip. It's my only comment.
So there's a more context to this conversation than we had tonight. So the police department have been looking at that parking lot for months now, doing counts to determine whether or not this would be something that they don't want to take away from the business parking. It's their recommendation, based on the counts of what's going on and the people parking there for the businesses, is that there is the flexibility to take 2 or 3 or 4 of these spots away. The residents on that Grove Street are being continually ticketed for parking on Grove Street, and I think that's unfair to them as well. Your points are very well taken. I think I'm assuming that the police department verified the number of permits that in that period of time that were purchased.
Like I said, that's a fluid situation, because I've gone in years past to get permits and said they were all sold. I mean, it's, like I said, at any given time, it changes.
Well, the recommendation was based on research that the police department had been doing over a period of time. But, I mean, Councilman Kenigo has been intimately involved through the Traffic and Safety Committee to come up with this recommendation. He could not be here tonight, but perhaps we want to hear from him at the next meeting, before we take any additional...
And like I said, I think it opens the door as well, because then you'd have other residents coming in. What's to stop if they said, well, you gave parking permits to Sam and Tom, I have the same issue.
I also don't know, because he's not here, and I'm sure he would share with us whether they looked at other solutions for the residents of allowing them to park on Grove or what have you. So your points are very well taken, and I think we should hear from Councilman Kenigo the next time he's present to share what actually was discussed at the meeting that came up with the recommendation.
I'd also like to take a drive down there myself to take a look.
Yeah, I went to visit both the neighbors. They're really having a difficult time.
I think then that paper street should be paved, and there should be parking for residents there. I mean, that's something that has, I'm sure you've seen it, it has boulders on both sides where nobody can get through. That should be something, the resident parking there, as opposed to, because I mean, I remember when I bought the building in 2011 and driving on there, and no businesses could get customers to park in Kindercamac. And now all those, I've gone to each one of those businesses after the parking lot was made and asked them, and it's improved dramatically.
Oh, I agree with you. I can get a parking spot on Kindercamac now.
Right.
But we also have to be mindful of the residents that are on that street that are getting ticketed for parking in front of their homes. So I don't know.
Why can't there's no, on one side of the street? I mean, I'm not sure the street's not wide enough for you to allow parking.
That's why I think we need to hear from Councilman Kenigo or have Officer Diamond come forward to address the council on all that they've reviewed to come up with this recommendation.
I agree. Just so that for council information, these are the plans from 2013 with estimated cost of construction. This was, at one time, we thought we could do a lot of different, we could do up to 47 parking spots, but that would have been very expensive. So just if the council wants to take a look at this, I keep these in my drawer if I ever think we have it incomplete. In addition to that, just a question I have, because I don't remember, they're getting ticketed for if they're parked outside their home for a 2-hour period, right?
I don't recall. I don't have her email with me.
Because that goes back to what I said to the BA, because anyone living between the Kindercamac and Bogart also get a ticket for parking in front of their homes.
I'm not sure about that, but again, that's something we should...
Yeah, I'm not against this. I'm just simply saying that here is some information, and I keep it in my drawer right here in a folder, any project that may come back. So these are, and they're right here in the folder, and if anyone in council wants to take a look at that.
So perhaps would you speak with Officer Diamond and get more context than he provided in his analysis?
I assume the 2-hour parking, I mean, maybe you don't have the answer, because it was many years ago, but the 2-hour parking on Grove was to stop commuters from parking on Grove?
Yes, that would make sense.
Okay.
I mean, you solve one problem, you move another problem down the road, you know.
I mean, I
Can't
live...
do all things to all people, but we
Right.
certainly want to...
Not to,
Beat as much as we can
beat it
for
into the
everyone.
ground, but I mean, I lived through this, and the stores are almost unrentable on there.
remember.
And if there's 2 residents come in, and then there's 4 residents come in, and 6 residents come in, that place is going to be a graveyard, and also
I remember.
I don't know what to say.
I remember, we worked
I lived
hard
through
on
it, and
that.
it was a nightmare, and I gave the borough in good faith an easement for $1
Yeah.
to alleviate the problem. And I'd hate to see, this happen.
We hear you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I emailed that he was going to speak.
Cindy Bequeath, 745 7th Avenue. I have a few points I wanted to bring up. Hi, everybody. Just to address the young lady that was here about the cell phone, about the siren. Before I moved back to River Edge again, I lived in San Diego, and they had taken down a siren in our neighborhood for those reasons. And I live in the northern end of San Diego. And when there was a fire, which we all ended up having to evacuate at 3 in the morning, my neighborhood of town. The only way that it worked was reverse 911 call, because there was now no longer a siren to alert people if there was a problem. So I'm not saying this is the exact same situation, but cell phones are not reliable. I live on the corner of 7th and Webb, and I've gone through 3 cell phone companies because my cell phones don't work. I've even tried talking with companies about amping up their cell towers. But, excuse me, but because we live in that little gully, it's awful. So, I mean, I grew up 8 blocks from where that siren is, and I remember it, and it's loud. However, you can't trust a cell phone. That is at least right now, unless you get better cell towers in this town to be able to get to the people that need to be contacted. That's my opinion. So other than that, we had some the insurance people come up here tonight, and one thing that I noticed, because I volunteered for the July 4th parade, is that I wasn't made to sign any waiver, waiving my right as a volunteer to, in case something happened to me. We ask a lot of people to volunteer at a lot of different functions here, whether it's the beautification committee, the shade tree committee, or what else, and maybe someone missed asking me, but I did not sign anything, and that makes the town liable for any time a volunteer does something on behalf of the town if you don't sign something saying you will not hold the town responsible if something happens to you.
Can I jump in here? Those don't always work anyway, those waivers.
And,
You know.
and I'm not saying they do.
Yeah.
However, I think putting something like that into place is a no-brainer, and to me. And we own a property that my daughter lives in, and one of my daughters lives in Colorado, and they have just, based on information that my husband and I gave them about 8 months ago, they have now put it into place with their insurance company that no matter any volunteer committee, whether it's to walk around and pick up trash, everyone has to sign something saying they will not hold this.
Certainly helps.
Yes, so it's just something I'd like you all to consider, because I don't think anybody needs to be, I don't think the town needs to be put under that potential liability, so I appreciate the consideration. In regard to the community center, I would like you all to consider moving all handicapped parking spaces from that upper lot, the new lot, down to the library lot, where it is flat ground, instead of having whoever is walking from that, I'm sorry, is this loud? The new lot, they're going to have to walk down a ramp, somewhat of a ramp, and I'm sure it's going to be the right, angles. However, I would prefer to see that the seniors only have a level area to walk on, and that their needs are closer to the parking spaces for the library, which now only has 2 spots for handicapped parking. So if they would consider putting that in to have them move all handicapped parking down to the lower lot, I would appreciate you looking into that.
Are you referring once the project is done, or you're saying as of today?
Well, you haven't added, there's no handicap spaces on that new lot that have been marked off as handicap. So I'm just saying, I have a 91-and-a-half-year-old mother who uses a walker, and any incline is a potential hazard. Now, granted, I'm not going to put salt down in the winter or whatever else, but why put our seniors or anybody who's using any kind of mobility device at risk by putting them on a ramp? So since we will have, you have parking spaces, we have plenty of able-bodied people here, I'm just asking that you consider any handicap parking that was going to be put in the upper lot. Since there's nothing going on in the upper lot, everything is in the lower lot, that you consider moving the handicap spots to the lower lot and let all able-bodied people, kids, whatever, get up to the upper lot themselves. It's a few more steps. I'm sure we're all very capable of walking that way. Thank you about that. I have a question regarding sidewalks. So my understanding when I came to the council maybe a year and a half ago, possibly, about sidewalks that, I do a lot of walking around town, and they're like this, you know, the roots from the trees. And my understanding was that when a house is sold, that is when the seller must repair the sidewalk before the town will grant CO. Thank you, a CO. So a property was just sold around the corner from me, and that did not happen. The town did not granted a CO without making the seller fix that sidewalk. At the bend where 8th meets Webb, the house there in the corner,
Yeah.
and it's this high, and they put cones, and I spoke to the new owner, and he said, you know, I've tried, but I'm going to have to pay for it because they were granted a CO and the property's been sold, so now I have to fix it. And I think in good faith, if there was a mistake made by the town and a CO was signed unintentionally, that they go back and take a look and fix it for this new owner who has moved into his home and is trying to make the property better. He's already re-sided, he's doing a lot of work, but that CO never should have been granted without that sidewalk being fixed. So I'd appreciate if someone would look into it.
Do you know the property number?
I wish I did, but I could.
Is it on 8th or is it on?
It's right on the corner of 8th and Webb. It's, it was a yellow.
Face Webb or 8th?
I'm sorry?
Does it face?
It faces 8th.
It's on
It
8th.
faces 8th. It was yellow, it's now
Gray.
Oh, I
gray
know. I
siding. They
think I
just
know
put a
that
gray
house,
siding
yeah.
on it. Yeah.
You'll look into
If you
that.
could look into it. As a neighbor, we just had our block party, and I asked him, you know, wasn't that supposed to be done? And he said, well, I've tried, but it's too late. It's done. So anyway, I appreciate if you look into that for this new member of our community. And then a couple of nights ago, I have a cousin whose son is a marvelous musician and a singer. He does a whole bunch of things all over and teaches music. And he is part of a group called Cedar Jam. And they just had a fundraiser in a church in Wyckoff on Saturday night. And it was a fundraiser for the volunteer ambulance and fire department of Wyckoff. And it raises money, and it's a wonderful musical performance. It's in a church, but it's not church-based. It's nothing like religious-based. And I'm wondering if we could consider, and I would be willing to work with anybody who wants to help champion this, to maybe try a fundraiser of that kind somewhere in our community where we could try and raise money to help our ambulance corps and fire, because they don't have enough money, and I think we need to do something about it. So if the council in its next iteration wants to think of somebody that wants to do it, I like doing things like this. I'd be more than happy to help spearhead it if the town wants to get behind it. So
I think you would want to talk directly to Rivas and the volunteer fire department and see if that's an initiative, something they'd like to do.
just talk directly to them. It wouldn't be through the town?
No, I think you.
No, it's not for the town.
No.
I
Okay.
think we would support it, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Great,
you.
thanks,
Thank
Cindy.
you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Motion to close to the public, please.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Councilwoman Davis, you want to start with comments?
Yes. I noticed that the Health Department put out that the New Jersey Department of Health created resources for public awareness regarding vaping. Incorruptible.us informs young people, which I think would be a great thing for us to be able to put out there somewhere, incorruptible.us. And the second one is vapefaxnj.com, and that gives all up-to-date info for parents, teachers, coaches, and healthcare providers. And I think that, that's a good thing for us to get out there to the public, since this is such a big issue right now. And as I mentioned before, I don't have the numbers on the fire department because they just changed their reporting. And I was not able to get ambulance corps updates. They're having issues with their radios right now, and they're response thing, so we can get them. That's it for now. Thank you.
Councilman Papaleo?
No comments tonight, thank you.
Councilman Goyer?
Thank you, Council President. I would like to mention that on October 23rd, the staff at the library will be having a training event on the Buckholz, the new programs for the library. And they'll be closed for this training until 1 p.m. Thank you.
Councilwoman Kaufman?
Just wanted to mention this Saturday at 2 o'clock is our Halloween parade. I'll be there judging the costume contest. Very excited about that. And then also, I was at an NJ Spotlight conference last week on the high price of pharmaceuticals. And someone there was mentioning that there is a New Jersey program called Senior Gold for seniors that are having trouble affording their medications. You can call 800-792-9745, and hopefully, pharmaceutical prices will be fixed sometime in the not-too-distant future for everybody.
Just mention that the River Edge Stigma Free Committee is hosting a program on the 24th, it's a Thursday, on hoarding. So if anybody is interested in attending that, it's going to be led by obviously a professional. For anyone who knows someone that is having a hoarding problem, is living with someone that's having a hoarding problem, there are resources available to assist you. So if you're interested, 7 p.m. at the library. We'll also be at the Halloween parade. I just want to mention that the Recreation Department is finalizing their schedule for next year. The Director of Recreation and Cultural Affairs is looking to add some additional programming, including a possible Taste of River Edge event with local restaurants and others, which would be really, really exciting. They're also have plans underway to add a menorah to their display at Borough Hall during holiday season as well. So if there's any comments or questions about that, I can take them. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to close.
So moved.
Second? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. All right. Good night, everyone. Thanks for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Seeing you again.
How's Julie?
She's doing fine.
Good.